We have a twofold mission. First, helping Christians to do a better job of sharing their faith. And second, taking teammates with us to share the gospel with the least of these, primarily inmates and at-risk youth. We start these events with an evening school of evangelism, where we train the teammates how to share their faith on a one-on-one basis. We then give them opportunities to put that training to use by going into prison for 1 or 2 days. This training also equips and inspires them to share their faith with their family, friends, and acquaintances when they do return home. And many pastors testify to how this training and these events have impacted the men and women in their congregations, encouraging them to be a bold witness for Jesus. Because of God's blessing and our outstanding reputation with wardens across the country, CFL is allowed to go into most, if not all, areas of the correctional facilities where we conduct our events. We want to reach those inmates who may never come to a chapel service, but who will come to the yard to hear a famous athlete or entertainer. We eat with the inmates, visit them in their cells, and even have our programs out in the prison yards, prison gyms, and on the prison athletic fields. We go to them. After the athletes and entertainers have addressed the inmates and shared what God has done in their lives, then teammates positioned throughout the yard gather inmates together one-on-one or in small groups and share with inmates how they can experience the same life change. CFL has taken more volunteers into American prisons than any other organization. So what differences have these efforts made? We don't have complete records for the number of inmates who have made decisions to follow Christ for the first 20 years of our ministry. However, since 1992 alone, over 800,000 inmates have made decisions to follow Christ. Perhaps the strongest endorsement of this work comes from prison officials around the country who have seen the changes in inmates and the effect that a weekend of champions can have on individual inmates and whole prison populations. Former chairman of the Texas Board of Criminal Justice, Alan Polinsky, said, "The Glass Ministry has a proven track record. I've talked to many wardens over the years to ask if these programs are beneficial, and the wardens almost universally assure me it's a benefit to the state. It has given inmates new hope and inspiration, and at the same time made it easier for the prison workers and our staff because the inmates abandon violence of uncooperative behavior." Warden Chuck Simmons of the Dorado Correctional Facility in Kansas had this to say: "We welcome the outreach because of its success in reducing prison violence and recidivism rates. In addition, it comes at no cost to the Kansas Department of Corrections. If it changes 1 or 2 in a way that once they got out, they don't come back, then it's a good deal." The former head of the U.S. Bureau of Prisons said they try every rehab program available, but surveys show that it doesn't matter whether an inmate goes through a rehab program or not. The recidivism rate is the same, except for what we are all doing. That is why we are invited into federal prisons all across this country. The need has never been greater for what we do. As traditional families have declined, prison population has soared over 1,000% in 3 decades. Currently, there are 2.2 million people locked up in the United States. 95% of these inmates will be released someday. 75% will be released in the next 2 to 3 years, and 2/3 of those will reoffend and end up back behind bars within 3 years. Traditional rehabilitation programs are simply not working. However, when a person receives Christ, he or she is a new creation, and we have seen this miraculous transformation over and over again. When an inmate is behind bars, they are often the most receptive to hearing the gospel of Christ. We focus on introducing these inmates to a personal relationship with Jesus. He is the key to real change, transformational change. You can support this effort in several ways. Pray for us, go with us, and help fund us. With your help, we can not only continue our existing ministry efforts to inmates and at-risk youth, but we can see these efforts grow. We hope that you would consider partnering with us in this vital work to help us bring the light of the gospel to some of the darkest corners of this nation, in order that we can continue to see tens of thousands of lives transformed by the gospel of Christ each year.